Well, first thing first, let's quickly go and take a look at how to find things on in the Google group, because you guys have been asking questions about where I can find Wisdom. When you go to your Google group, this is after you log in, and just say groups.google.com. When you say groups.google.com, that's going to bring you to the Google groups, and over here you could be clicking on my groups, and since I'm logged in as me as an admin, basically I have access to every group which is out there that we have created. So in your case, you're not going to be seeing all this. You'll be seeing only those groups to which you are subscribed to. So if you are a Selenium student, then you would be seeing that. If you're a QTP, if you're mobile testing, if you're SoapUI. So in this particular case, you should be seeing the SoapUI. So when you click on SoapUI, so that the group that you will be accessing, and over here, there are tons of posts that people have made in the last few years that we have been offering this training. So if you're looking for something, just type search for that particular topic in here. So say for instance, you're looking for a database. So you're going to go and then do a search on the database, and you see that there's so many things that are shown up pertaining to the database. That's how you connect to the database, what are the details of the databases, and stuff like that. In this case, let's look for Wisdom, and hit enter. Now you see that there are things about Wisdom as well, right? So you can look into different Wisdoms that you could see. So let's say, for instance, you want to find out the different Wisdoms. I don't know if you click on that. Here are some of the Wisdoms. The complete set of Wisdom file probably is here, and you can see probably like if you don't really see, this is what I am going to do right now. I will post one so that you all have the access to it. So I'm going to go here, and I will just take off, and I will come here, and then I will make a new post. So over here, I will have a new topic, Wisdom URL or something like that. Right? So do that and do a post, and you all should see a copy of that, what I have just posted. It'll come to your email, and you should be seeing a copy of that. So this is how you would basically go and then check it, and that will take care of that. Any other thing that you are looking for, you should be able to check that way. Hang on for just 1 second, if you can. Hello. So sorry about that. Let's see. occasionally we have this problem on day 1 and day 2 when people they call at the last minute to get their invitation. If you don't get an invitation hours before the start of the session, just send us an email. Don't wait till the last moment to send us an email, or call us after the session, because once the session is started, it's not fair to the people who are already in the session that we do this. Okay, so with that said, let us keep going. Let's see if we have anything that we should be doing right now. Okay. All right. So I'm not gonna take any questions right now till we get started. There are a couple of questions here about how do I do this, how do I do that. And if there is any technical question, I will take it. If there is any other question, I would rather wait till the end of this session to answer those questions, right? Anything pertaining to this particular session, SoapUI, you might ask those questions here in this session. If you ask me something about I missed the Selenium class last week and I want to attend this tomorrow's class, I mean, that this is not the right place for that question. Okay, so with that said, let us get started as far as what we are going to do today. So today, as I promised to you folks yesterday that I would be talking about the visitors today, it is important that we have some idea of how to parse and how to understand a visitor file. And once you have a good understanding of the visitor file, then things becomes extremely easy for you to go and test. So yesterday, if you recall, we laid out the plot where we said that before even you do any testing, you have to have your visitor file. So I'm going to go and pick up any visitor today, and let us go ahead and then try and parse that visitor, make some sense out of it. So we can take this one, the first one right here on the first one, right? So I will go, and in order to make some sense out of this visitor, you have to post that visitor onto your browser, and let's see if we can understand what's going on in here. Okay, visitor, as it stands for, is a web service description language. So it is going to describe your web service. The way it's going to describe the web service is using XML, right? So what you see here is all XML. All right. So without going into the technical details of what XML is, I'll give you a simple, very simple, explanation of what XML is. XML is all about data, meaning that you'll have some data, and that data needs to be properly represented so that it makes some sense. So right now, if I talk to you about some data, and if we can relate to that data, then we can make some sense out of that data. If we cannot relate to that data, then it's going to become a little bit difficult for us to understand what's going on, here. So usually in XML, you have data represented, whatever the data is. That is basically enclosed into what is called these angle less than or greater than what is called tags or elements, right? So these are called as in any language like HTML, these are like tags. All right. So in HTML, you see that there is a tag called H1, there is a tag called title, there is a tag called body, there is a tag called table, there is a tag called image. So these are all what is called predefined tags. Now, what do you mean by predefined? Meaning that a language as an HTML, it has a set or a predefined number of tags. You're not going to add more or take away anything from it. Those are the set that is defined as a part of the language. In XML, there is no definition like that, that you have to have a particular set or the number of tags. XML, anything can be a tag in XML. Now, that really doesn't sit well when you say that anything can be a tag. So you might want to have a little more explanation of what do you mean by that. So let's say in XML, I have some data, and the data is, let's see if I take this as, now, that is a beautiful name, but till I got in touch with him, I would not know that that can be a name, right? Because I come from a different part of the world, so it is not necessarily, reflects to a name of a human being, but it's a beautiful name, right? But let's say if I had not met him, right, then I would not know that that's a name. So how can somebody else know that this is a name? So let's say if around this, right, if I surround it with these tags and say that this is, let's say, I would say that. So I'm saying that that's a tester. Riley is a tester, right? So now I know that this is not only a human being, it's a name, but I also know that he's a tester. So this was some data, and this data is much more represented or defined with the use of an element here. So this is all XML. So XML is basically data, but it also holds this data inside these elements, and these elements, they tell a little more about this data. So these elements can be referred to as metadata, which means that data about this data. So you might say that why are we even bothering about these things? The reason we are bothering about these things is because XML, extensible markup language, right? This language is basically used a lot for the SoapUI or for the SOAP web services. Remember, there are two types of web services. There is something called a SOAP web service, and then there is something called a REST web service. So for the SOAP web service, we will be dealing a lot with XML. So it's better to have some idea of XML, and that's basically what I'm trying to provide with this next couple of minutes, wherein I will show you that in order to make some sense of an XML document, you have to have idea of what these things are. So these things are called tags. They're also called as elements, and since they are existing in a group, or it's not just like each file will have only one element, they can exist in groups or more than one. So they are also referred to as node, right? So in context of an XML document, we can say that this can be a node, and this node has children in it. So you have nodes inside the nodes. So there is something called a parent node. There is something called a child node. So all the way up, there will be something called a root node. So there is something called a root node. So you have in XML something called a root node. Root node is basically like a parent node. Inside the root node, you'll have many other child nodes, and these nodes, they exist by themselves, or they also have something called attributes. Right? They also have something called attributes. What do you mean by attributes? Attribute define a little more about that particular node. So let's say if I have here a tester, and if I say that this tester is expertise is an attribute, and here I say that he's a manual tester, right? So the fact that I have this manual here as a value of an attribute, that describes this tester a little bit more. So in XML, you would have you would have nodes, and nodes will have attributes, right? And attributes basically has value, and those values will describe more about that particular node. Okay, with that a little introduction, let's look into something called a WSDL. And if you look into this WSDL, these are all nodes. So this is, if I collapse all this, this is WSDL definition. This is called the parent node. So there is a WSDL definition. There is a closing of the WSDL definition. In XML, unlike HTML, XML is very, very rigid when it comes to following the rules. You have to follow the rules of XML. An XML file has to be well formed for it to even get parsed or executed. I think there was a question here. It's not a question. I think somewhere I just read before the starting of this session. Give me a second here. I'll show it to you, and then that will make a little more sense as word happens. If you look in here, while creating SoapUI project using ePay WSDL, getting error message, XML exception, error, does not close tag. See here, does not close tag. So what is it telling us? Now XML will give an error if it is not well formed. What do you mean by well formed? If you open any tag, this is a tag. If you open a tag, you have to close a tag. So while creating the WSDL, in one of my WSDLs, let's say where you copied from or whatever, my WSDL might not be well formed, meaning that it is not following the rules of XML. The rules of XML is if you open a tag, you have to close a tag. That is one of the rules. What are the other rules? Now, the tags, they have to be properly nested. Properly nested, meaning that if you open an XML like this, wherein you are saying that here I'm going to have this as an tester, right? Tester, and this is, let's say, John, end of tester, right? This is good. Now I have tester, and this is Jane, and I have end of tester. To a human eye, this is good, but this is not good for XML. Why? Case does matter. If you have an uppercase T, you have to have an uppercase T here. It cannot be like that, right? So this is one of the rules of XML, that case does matter. Now, for a human eye, tester, end of tester, it's very much the same. Now, let's say we have here, this is project, right? We are talking about a project, and in that project we have these testers, and I have here end of project, right? And then let's say I forgot to include a tester. I am including a tester here again, tester, and this is Joe, and end of tester. Now this is not going to work. Why? Because this tester has to be inside this end of project. Because if you're putting all the testers inside the project, you cannot have this outside it, because you're not nesting it properly. So the nesting of the elements is important. So there are these are called well-formedness. So these rules need to be followed. If you don't follow those rules, then you have an issue. Now, sometimes we have some points that will really kind of like display. This is what session of SoapUI class is this? This is a day 2, right? Now, did I anywhere mention anything about today's assignment? Did I do anything? The time here is 11:25. And there is something here, how to finish day 2 assignment without installing SoapUI Pro version. I mean, this tells a lot about somebody. All right, so I'm just gonna leave it just like that and proceed, because um, okay, I say no more. Okay, so let's come back and discuss a little bit about your WSDL. So in WSDL, you have the root node, and then we have many other nodes in there. So if you look into trying to understand this document, I will be like, this is a little bit overwhelming because we don't know where to start, what to do. So here is the trick. The way is, once I give you the most important elements that you have to worry about, one of them is types, right? And of course the other one is message. So what I am going to do, if you see my trick of resolving it, so once I had everything open, rather than closing the parent one, keep the parent one open, the root one open rather, and then start to close the rest of them. So if you close this and try to close all open ones, and as you do that, very soon you will get an idea of how to parse or how to read an XML WSDL file. Now you would say that, what if I have like 2,000? Am I gonna go into each one of them and then start to close? Now there is a reason I intentionally took this WSDL, because here I have put in lot of operations in here, so that you can see, usually you would not have this many operations, but even if you have many operations, this is an easy way of understanding how to parse or how to read an XML WSDL. Now the way you're going to be reading an XML WSDL is, if you know only very few XML elements. So I'm just gonna write those elements for you, right? Okay, so we're gonna start out all the way. See here, that's all I have. If you see here, that's all I have, right? So this is after collapsing, I am down to this many. And let me point out what are the things which you should be focusing on. All right, so I'm starting here in the bottom. So look into something called service. Look into something. Now everything will be prefixed with WSDL. That is to tell that it's a WSDL document. So no need to worry too much about WSDL : because everything is prefixed by that. So service is one of the elements that we have to pay attention to. The other one is binding, is another one that we have to pay attention to. Now notice you will find redundant, right? Binding and binding. So the way you can really see that if it is redundant, look into the binding will have an attribute called name. This binding is also have an attribute called name. So if these two names are different but similar in the sense that this is TREPACE soap and this is TREPACE soap 12, that means that this is like a backward compatibility. We have an older version of that, there's a newer version of that. So even if you take one, that is fine. So so far we looked into service, we looked into binding, and then we have to look into something called a port type, and we look into message. And going all the way up, we look into types. Okay, everything boils down to these 5 elements: types, message, port type, binding, and service. Now, all these 5 things should give you A, B, and C of the web service, because you need ABC of the web service. A stands for your address, meaning that URL or where this web service can be found or is hosted from. That's basically what we mean by A, right? Okay. Now, as I cover A, from where to find the information about A in here, right? We will say that, okay, I know everything about A of web service. Likewise, I'm going to go for binding, and likewise, I'm going to go for the contract. Okay, so here we start. Let me go for A, address. Where would you find the address? If you scroll down in any, now I'm giving you an example of this REST service. You can take any, when I say REST, this web service, you can take any web service, and the process pretty much remains the same. So go and find the service tag. So here is the service tag. Expand the service tag. It's in the collapse mode. If you see a plus, that means that it is in a collapse mode. So expand it. Once you expand it, you will see that here inside the WSDL, there are some child nodes, right? Port, right? Child node. Inside the child nodes, you have one more element called address. And when you look into the address, this is the location attribute of the address, gives us the A of ABC. A meaning the address. So where do you find the A or the address? You find it in the service element of the WSDL. So coming back, anytime if you want to find out the address of where this web service is hosted from, you just open into the WSDL and look into the service, and you will find